Welcome to Astro Shots. My name is Stan and this is the fourth episode. Mundane Astrology, the next level. I would like to talk about the book The Code of Hathor Deciphered. It is written by Kris van den Driessche from Belgium and it deals with the precession cycle and the upheavals linked to it. Now, before I start, this is the definition of the precession. The precession is a slow westward movement of the equinoxes along the 12 zodiac signs on the ecliptic, and it takes about 26,000 years. Its speed is about 1 degree every 72 years. In his book, Kris explains that science thinks precession is caused by the movement of the Earth. But in reality, precession is not caused by the Earth, but it's caused by the orbit of our solar system, of which the Earth forms only a part. Scientists regard the precession as a supplementary rotation of the Earth, while they are forgetting about the orbit of our solar system, as if it doesn't exist. So then the question arises, what does our Sun orbit? In the book The Holy Science, it is said that the Sun orbits its jewel. That means that somewhere there is another star that takes the Sun as its jewel, and the Sun takes this other star as its jewel. The daily cycle causes day and night, and the yearly cycle causes the seasons. What does the precession cycle create? In the Holy Science, we can read that when the first point of Aries rises at the fall equinox, the solar system is closest to the grand center of the galaxy, and that man's consciousness becomes so advanced that it can grasp the divine. Kris points our attention to the fact that this precession cycle is also causing enormous catastrophes. Now, what are the catastrophes we're talking about? In all smaller cycles, we have two high tides. In the daily cycle, the high tides are when the moon is right above us and when the moon is right below us. In the monthly cycle, we have two higher tides, the spring tides we call them, at new moon and at full moon. And during the precession cycle, we have two world floods. This means that about every 12,000 years, midway the cycle, there is a catastrophic world flood. Now, what are the sources that back up this theory? Well, first of all, we have Genesis chapter 7, and there we have the famous story of Noah. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came on the earth, and Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood. Pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds and of all creatures that move along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark, as God had commanded Noah. And after the 7 days, the flood waters came on the earth. There's also a Coptic text called Akbar al-Zaman by the writer Masudi, which can be found in Oxford, and it says, "One of the kings before the flood builded two great pyramids and ordered the priests to deposit within them the written accounts of their wisdom and acquirements in different arts and sciences, that they should remain on record for the benefit of those who could afterward comprehend them." Okay, so we see from myths and legends and ancient writings that several times the earth has been destroyed by catastrophic floods. Now, what could be the cause of this flood, of this world flood? Plato, in his book Politicus, or Statesman, he says, "The change in the rising and the setting of the sun and the other heavenly bodies. Before the catastrophe, they used to set in the quarter where they now rise, and used to rise where they now set. At certain periods, the universe has its present circular motion, and at other periods it revolves in the reverse direction. Of all the changes which take place in the heavens, this reversal is the greatest and most complete." We also have Herodotus telling us of his conversations with the Egyptian priests somewhere in the second half of the 5th century BC. The Egyptian priests assured him that In the famous time of the Egyptians, the sun rose 4 times on the opposite side to where it normally rose. Twice it rose where it now sets, and twice it rose where it rises now. So the sun rose where it normally sets, and vice versa. But how does the firmament of stars and sun change its direction every 12,000 years? This can only happen in two ways. The Earth's orbit cannot suddenly stop and start moving in the opposite direction. The second option is that the Earth turns upside down, and that is what we find described in the Egyptian papyrus Harris. It describes the recurring global catastrophes, and it reads: this catastrophic cycle is due to an inversion of the magnetic poles, which causes a reversal of the geographic poles. In his book, Kris explains it scientifically. The direction of the fast solar winds determines the magnetic poles of the Earth and the poles of the other planets in our solar system. Now, if the fast solar wind turns 180 degrees twice in a precession cycle, then the magnetic direction of the Earth also flips every 12,800 and such years. Considering that the Earth is a huge permanent magnet connected with the direction of the fast solar winds, then this permanent Earth magnet needs to rotate 180 degrees when this magnetic direction of the fast solar wind changes, in order to remain harmoniously connected with the magnetic poles. So then now we ask the question, when exactly does this flipping of the magnetic and the geographical poles arise? A Coptic papyrus scroll tells us the following: the world flood shall take place when the heart of the lion, or the sign of Leo, or the constellation Leo, starts to touch the beginning of the crab, of the head of the crab. If you trace a line across the zodiac in the temple of Hathor, from the head of Cancer to the heart of Leo, it goes right through the cross of the cardinal points, and we get a date somewhere between 10,865 and 10,500 BC. When he was in Egypt, Kris asked some people who could read the hieroglyphs on the Dendera zodiac in the temple of Hathor what was written on them. And the answer he got was, well, it's very confusing because it literally says that the earth turns upside down. Is there any evidence we can find today that points to such a direction of the magnetic poles? And there is. We find it in lava, because lava retains the magnetic direction from the time when it solidifies. And there have been lava stones found with different magnetic directions, lava from those brief periods when those polar flips have happened. So this is in short what is described in Kris's book, The Code of Hathor Deciphered. I'll leave it up to you, the listeners, to discover more about it yourself. You can buy the book on Amazon.com, both in digital formats or in a paperback format. This was the fourth episode. Thank you for listening.